This is a $100 bill. I could use it to buy food for the hungry, or I could use it to buy textbooks for students. But now, all I can use it for is fire. See, everything has an opportunity cost, and we have to be intentional about how we're using our most valuable resources. Now, the world's most valuable resource isn't money, it's not gold or oil, it's people. But the way that we're mining human potential is like using a pickaxe to mine for gold. When I was in university, I had the opportunity to work in Bangladesh at Grameen Bank. And while I was in Bangladesh, I lived in many different villages. And in one of those villages, I went to this school. And I remember walking through the wooden doors of the school and hearing all the energy and excitement and just feeling this hunger to learn from these young people. But a few moments after this picture was taken, I remember feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness. Because I realized something. I realized that even though biologically and genetically I was no different from these people, their ability to make a significant impact on millions of lives was far less than mine. And at the time, I thought it was because of their lack of access to resources. So when I came back to Canada, I visited a well-off school. And I asked myself this question: what are the chances that these students will go on and impact millions of people in a significant way? And it hit me. The answer was still very low. But how could that be? These kids have all the resources available to them, so why are their chances to significantly impact millions still low? And I think it's because we're not training people to use their resources in the most effective way. And I think that's because we don't know how. We need a plan. We need a human blueprint. If we can use a blueprint to build things like bridges, why can't we use a similar method to develop people? If we think about a bridge, there's really two components. The first is the purpose, getting people from point A to point B. And the second is the plan on how to get there, the materials and structures. When you think about our version of a blueprint today for people, we just have to look towards schools. Schools aren't just a place where people learn about things like math and English. It's where we spend most of our transformative years. It's where we develop the knowledge, skills, and values that eventually shape who we become. But here's the problem. Schools aren't optimized for that. We're being trained on how to be like a Google search. Question in, answer out. We have a history class, but we don't have a future class. We don't get trained on how to be kind or how to be honest with each other. And I think this is why we need to develop some sort of plan, because as a result, we don't have a shared value system that we can all align on that we've been taught formally. And we don't have a clear vision for the future that we can all work towards. So how do we create this blueprint? I think the first question I ask myself is, well, how do we get people from point A to point B? But more importantly, what is B? What is B? And to answer this question, I think about a broader question, which is, how do we want the world to look like in 100 years from now? How do we want the world to look like in 100 years from now? Because the purpose of this blueprint isn't to make everyone the same, but rather to identify what are our shared value systems and what are the skills and knowledge that we need to holistically contribute to society. And so if we have a vision for the future, we can align on getting there. Because if we don't know where we're going, then how can we make a plan to get there? And so to think about this question, I asked 3 sub-questions to myself. The first is, how do I see, or how do we see, people living and interacting with each other? So that's the first question. The second question is, what types of technologies and tools might we have to solve really important problems? And the third is, what are the skills that we need to actually contribute to society? Now, for the first question, I envision a world where people are interacting with each other in kindness. I see people developing authentic, meaningful relationships, and I see people being fundamentally happy. For the second question, around what technologies might exist, I see us using quantum computers to simulate molecules to discover new drugs to combat our most deadliest diseases. I see us using technologies like cellular agriculture to replace animal meat with lab-grown meat, saving us a massive amount of water, energy, and land. And around the skills, I see people building strong communication skills, collaboration skills, and problem-solving skills so we can tackle big problems like colonizing Mars or making humans into an interplanetary species. This isn't sci-fi. This is our reality. And I think most people would agree with me on many of these points. But if we agree, then what are we doing about it? How are we developing people to be kind, to develop authentic, meaningful relationships, to be happy? How are we training people to learn about technologies like quantum computing and cellular agriculture? And how are we building the skills in people to be able to solve big problems like colonizing Mars? So when I think about this blueprint, it really outlines a lot of these pieces that will help us get to where we want to be. And over the past 3 years, I've been thinking about this problem. How do we build this ideal blueprint? And I've come up with a framework that I'd like to share with you today. And there's 6 pieces to this framework. The first is mindset. I think we need to develop a strong mindset in people. And mindset includes things like kindness and empathy, as well as grit and resourcefulness. I think it starts in the mind, and these aren't buzzwords. These are real things that we have to train. The second is wisdom. I think we need to develop people to be wise. And we can do this by learning from the most wise people in history, like Socrates, Aristotle, and Marcus Aurelius, as well as modern thinkers like Naval Ravikant and Yuval Noah Harari. I think we need to develop people to have self-understanding, because if you don't know who you are, how can you ever truly be happy and achieve inner harmony? We also need to know how the world works, because here's the reality. As humans, we experience maybe 0.00001% of the world, but we use that to shape 80% or more of how we see it. We need to learn more about it so we can step outside our bubble of ignorance. We need to develop fundamental skills like communicating, collaborating, problem solving. And we need to understand these exponential technologies. We need to understand these tools that we can use to solve big problems. Tools like artificial intelligence, tools like quantum computing, nanotechnology, and cellular agriculture. So, over the last 3 years since I've started the program I run, I've been working with talented young people around this type of framework to develop them to solve $1 billion dollar problems and problems that impact billions of people. And we call these people unicorn people. So the idea is in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, the idea of a unicorn company is a company that makes $1 billion, whereas in our organization, we think about unicorn people as people who impact billions. And these are some of those people. People like Zaina, 15 years old, who's been working for the last 2 years on projects in artificial intelligence, blockchain, virtual reality, and more recently, brain-computer interfaces, connecting our minds, our brains, with external objects. Or Ben. Ben is working on revolutionary methods to be able to detect glucose levels in your blood non-invasively, no needles. And next to Ben is Hannah, who's been working for the last few years passionately trying to cure our most deadliest diseases using genetic engineering and gene editing tools like CRISPR. What I've learned by being around these people is that humans have much more potential than we think. We're just not developing them the right way, and we need to be intentional about how we develop them. So my message to you is this: we wouldn't burn a $100 bill. So why do we continue to burn away our children's potential? Thank you.